Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Pumpkin Cheesecake. That's right, we're combining America's favorite cheese-based dessert with America's favorite gourd. Sorry, cucumbers. And this came out so delicious, I can't believe nobody thought of combining these before. It really works great. So let me show you how to do this. The bad news is there's a lot of ingredients. The good news is it's super easy to do. So step one here, we're going to make a crumb crust, and instead of the traditional graham crackers, we're going to go with ginger snaps. And I want you to use those thin, dry, hard ones you ate when you were a kid. Do not buy those fancy, good-tasting ginger snaps. And we're going to throw those in a bag and crush those down to a fine crumb. And if you have a food processor, use it. This took like 20 minutes and the bag broke, and it was kind of annoying. But eventually I got her done. So we're going to toss a couple of cups of those in a mixing bowl, to which we're going to add some flour, some brown sugar, and some melted butter. And then we're going to take a spatula and we're going to mix this thoroughly, kind of smashing it and mashing it against the bottom of the bowl until it basically resembles sand. And it's not really going to hold together yet, but that's fine because we're going to add 1 egg yolk. And once we mix that up with the spatula very well, you should have a nice pressable ginger snap crumb crust. All right? And it's not going to be wet. It's still going to be very sand-like. But if you squeeze it together like that, it will clump, which is perfect. So we're going to set that aside while we prep our springform pan. That's your standard 10-inch by 3-inch cheesecake pan. I'm going to spray that thoroughly with some canola. We're going to dump in our crumbs. We're going to even them out, of course, because why wouldn't you? And I like to go up the sides about 1 inch. And then you're going to want to press that down firmly on the bottom, of course. And if you want up the sides a little bit, you'll want to go around and press with your fingers around the outside, around the outside, around the outside. Okay, so our crumbs are in and firmly pressed. And at that point, we're going to place this on a piece of heavy-duty foil and kind of press it tight and bring it up against the sides. And then we're going to place that in a large roasting pan. And because we are going to use a water bath, that foil is going to add a little extra layer of protection. Although I've never had a problem with water getting into the pan, so this is probably unnecessary. But we'll do it anyway. Some of us get paid by the step. And then we can just let that sit there while we make our filling, which, like any great cheesecake, is going to start with cream cheese. So I got 4 packages. I'm using the one from the city that the roots are from. And to that, we're going to add some brown sugar and white sugar. And we'll bring that over to our stand mixer that has the paddle attachment. And all we need to do for this step is simply cream those together. So start off slow so it doesn't all fly out. Come on, stay in there. Stay in there. All right, I think we're okay. And once it gets mixed in, you can turn it up to high speed and just mix that until light and fluffy. At which point we're going to stop, scrape down that paddle, and simply reserve that until needed. So in another bowl, we're going to add 2 cans of pumpkin puree, pure pumpkin. The ingredient list should literally just say pumpkin. If it says anything else, don't use it. And then we're going to spice that up with the traditional pumpkin pie spices, including cinnamon, some ground ginger, some allspice, some freshly grated nutmeg. And by the way, to the people emailing me, I have no idea why I say it like that. It's a mystery. We're also going to need a nice big pinch of salt, as well as some vanilla extract and some bourbon whiskey. Oh yeah, that's optional, but you should add it. And then we're ready for the eggs. We're going to add 4 large whole eggs, plus 2 large egg yolks. And then we're going to grab our whisk and start mixing this up. And anytime I grab a whisk, I always ask myself, what did you forget? And in this case, it was the flour. So I stopped, threw in some flour, resumed mixing, and we're going to keep mixing that until completely smooth. And then the final step, go ahead and grab your cream cheese mixture, dump it in, and mix it until absolutely and thoroughly smooth. It's going to take a minute, but you don't want any lumps of cream cheese because you'll see little white dots in your finished cheesecake. And of course, I made this harder on myself by using cold cream cheese instead of room temperature cream cheese, which would mix in a lot easier. So please follow the directions on the blog post where I say to use room temperature. And once you're confident that is absolutely smooth, we can go ahead and pour that into our pan. And then we don't want to give it the old tappa-tappa or the traditional old shaka-shaka, but we are going to spatulate this in the center, which is going to kind of settle everything from the inside out. And once that's been done, we're going to carefully pick this up. Yes, it is filled almost all the way to the top, so be careful. We're going to carefully place that in the center of a preheated 325-degree oven. And I mentioned we're going to do a water bath, but that's much easier if you pour the water in with the pan already in the oven. So I'm going to pour in my steaming hot water. They say it should be boiling, but my tap water is so hot, it's almost boiling. And we're going to pour that in, and we want it to come about halfway up the pan. And once we've done that, we'll push that back in, close the door, and we're going to bake that at 325 for about 1 hour and 45 minutes approximately. And I like to start checking it about 1.5 hours, and I definitely like to use a thermometer to check. That's why you're going to see a hole in the top. And we're going to shoot for an internal temperature of about 160. And the mixture is not going to be totally set. It's definitely going to have a little jiggle in the center. If you cook your cheesecake until it's set, it will be overcooked. And I'm going to give you a ton more info on the blog on how to tell yours is done. So go check that out. At that point, we're going to turn off the heat. We're going to open the oven door to let most of the heat out. At this point, I like to go around the edge with a thin knife, which will help that surface not crack as it contracts. And once that's done, we're going to go ahead and close the door, but not all the way. We're going to leave the door ajar, and we're just going to let that cheesecake slowly cool in that warm oven for 1 hour. And theoretically, that's going to prevent cracks. So I let mine cool an hour like that. I pulled it out, and you can see absolutely no cracks. The only blemish, that stupid thermometer mark, but I did that for you. And again, you got to check the post for that bonus internal temperature info. And at this point, you can remove it from the pan and just set it on the counter and let it cool completely. See, it's probably still a little warm. So let it sit there for a couple hours. Once it's room temperature, throw some foil on it, throw it in the fridge, and chill it completely before you try to unmold it. You cannot and don't want to cut a warm cheesecake. Besides, warm cheesecake tastes terrible. So let it cool. And if you do leave this overnight, don't be surprised if the next morning you have some pumpkin sweat. Nothing to worry about, totally normal. Just take a paper towel and wipe off a little of that perspiration. And then simply unlatch that spring, carefully remove the ring, and you're ready to slice and serve your pumpkin cheesecake. Check that out. For an old line cook, that's not bad. And of course, I'm going to give it a little dollop of whipped cream. That's optional, unless you're taking pictures, then it's mandatory. And then maybe for a little visual interest, some green pumpkin seeds. You may remember that garnish from every single pumpkin recipe I've ever done. And that's it. Lots of ingredients, took a long time, but super easy to make, and the taste and texture just absolutely stunning. Like a perfect hybrid between a pumpkin pie and a cheesecake. The flavor's like 75% pumpkin pie, 25% cheesecake. The texture the other way around, like 75% cheesecake, 25% pumpkin pie. And if you add that up, it comes up to 100% delicious. So whether you're making this as a special Thanksgiving dessert, or just anytime you want something sweet that tastes incredible, I really hope you give this a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.